there, students. So now we're going to be talking about assignment 7, enemies. And so we're going to look at how this is going to work first. And let me widen up my screen. So on this one, we're going to actually run the whole game. So our choice is going to be 3. You can see there's my little guy still hanging in there. And he moves around the screen very nicely. And somewhere in here, oh, there's all the enemies. There are the enemies. And so the goal of this little enjoyable game is for this little guy to make it all the way down to the bottom without getting hit by an enemy. And in this current configuration, you can see that's not such a plausible thing. So there's our lovely enemies, and we're going to add those to the screen. And they don't have to all be at the bottom, but I chose that for my little option. And then we can see how other things are. Okay, so first off, here's what we've got. We've got a Java file for enemy.java, and that consists of an enemy, so one of these, a speed at which it's moving, so how fast is it moving in the x direction, and an xy location for it to start off. This code is all done for you, and you can see like there's no green comments to tell you to fill in work here. So that's number 1. What you are going to do is you're going to be working on the enemies.java. So this is a class that has an array list of enemies in it. So that's how we're going to be keeping track of all the enemies that are added into the class. Excuse me. And it also has a link to the guy. And you can see that the constructor here, when I create my enemies list, I pass in the person I've created. So we have a reference to that, the character on the screen. That'll be useful for our collision material. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to add some enemies. So you're going to add enemies to the list. I think I'm adding too many enemies because it certainly makes the game very hard, but you can kind of tinker around with how that would work for you. So adding enemies there, because we're going to work on that code later. And then what we want to know is we're going to remove the enemies that go out of bounds. So we've got this enemy list here. And what we want to do is whenever their x coordinates, whenever the x coordinate of each enemy gets too big, meaning it's moved too far to the right, it's going to be off the ground. Well, how far is too far off the right? Well, that's a great question. Where's my main? I think it's up here. No, it's in game.java. So in game.java, we've set up our screen to have a width of 800 and a height of 600. So we know that when our x coordinate for our enemy is off the screen, meaning it's out of greater than 800, we can remove it from the list. So here we're going to loop through the list. So I'm going to write some general code, loop through enemies list, and remove those whose x coordinate is greater than 800. Okay, so that's removing the enemies that go out of bound. You want to think about, we've got an array list, and so we should be feeling more comfortable with the concept of that size plus. So you can use this type of array list, okay? And you're going to remove each enemy there. Then you're going to go through the list of enemies and call their draw and their move methods. So each enemy has a move and has a draw. So you're going to do both of those things in the code right there. Call it on each one of these. And you might think hey, why would I do 2 lists? Maybe I'll just do 1 or 2 things there. And I'm going to, maybe I'll say, move the enemy, draw the enemy. Oh, I'm having a bad time with spelling. Oh, move the enemy. And then maybe I'll check my x coordinate in here. If too big, move from list. Draw the enemy if not. So you can do some sort of if statements here. Move the enemy, test the x coordinate. If it's too big, remove it from the list. If it's not too big, go ahead and draw it. All right. So there's some code that you will have done here in this draw and collision routine. Then, well, that's about it. You got it. Oh, in the, I think the add enemy method down here, you can do something like this. You don't have to do this. Again, this is up to you. You can pick a random speed or pick a set speed. When you add an enemy, you're going to set a new enemy with a speed or X, or Y, and a random speed. And you don't want them to all show up at the same point on the screen. So go ahead and do some randomness in there. Here's the math.random, multiplying by 800 to give myself the range of the X, and multiplying by 300 plus 300 because I want to have an offset that's down in this lower part of the screen. You can leave this plus 300 off. Oops, that's weird. You can leave that plus 300 off if you want to have the enemies pop up throughout the screen. And there you have it.